Isn't it? I'm going to start with this.
Okay. This is the geekiest t-shirt.
There are no rules.
It's Scott McCloud Making Comics Tour t-shirt.
Okay, here we are. This is introduce you to Daniel Merlin Goodbrey, who's going to be talking about his work at Hypercomics at the Pump House Gallery. Okay. Now, have your attention. We've got Daniel Merlin Goodbrey here, who I'm going to do a bit of filming as well. Excuse me, but I won't get in your way. But Dan's going to talk about his work here as part of Hypercomics. So over to you, Daniel.
Hello, everyone. I haven't rehearsed this anyway, so I guess I'm going to talk a little bit about the piece, and then hopefully open it up to questions, and hopefully people will have some questions, and I can talk some more, in which I give the answers. So this is The Archivist, which we started talking about around December last year. Paul invited me to be part of the show. But at that point, I didn't really have any idea what I was going to do. I kind of took a walk around the space, and I think I drew a diagram, something a bit like this, which showed grids on each wall and then maybe lines connecting them in some way. And I didn't think about it for a while. We had to wait to see if we would have any money to do the show. And then sometime between there and then, I discovered that Dave McKean was going to be involved, and I realized I really actually had to do something good. It would be embarrassing, because if you're going to be in a show with Dave McKean, you have to not suck. So I started to seriously think about what I was going to do for this piece. And the more I thought about it, the more I thought I wanted to do something that was quite complex in terms of story. I wanted to do something that was kind of the size of a graphic novel in terms of amount of story there. Because most of the time I get to do kind of experimental pieces like this, which I tend to do for the web. I'm more focused on just doing a quick experiment and not telling too much story. But I knew for this I wanted to tell something that told quite a lot of story. And I think it started from the idea started from the idea of kind of the Kubrick's boxes about the life of Napoleon. That's kind of where it started. Kubrick had all these boxes in which he had everything that Napoleon did between two specific dates in time. I can't remember when he was planning to film a film about the life of Napoleon. And I thought that could be an interesting thing for an archive about someone's entire life. And it was the idea that it would be this kind of glam rock, this failed glam rock star's life. Everything in his life would have been kept in this archive, and it kind of developed from there. The idea that this glam rock character who became called Hieronymus Pop would have started off as a kind of a Ziggy Stardust type character, but his career went in different directions, and he became dictator of this small kind of island nation, and then which just briefly flourishes and then goes into horrible repression, and then he's kind of like vilified and becomes this terrible person, ends up dying. So this archive spans his life. The story is not actually about Hieronymus Pop, it's about the man who keeps the archives. It's about the archivist, and that's where the piece's title came from. So it's set in a version of the Pump House Gallery in this slightly alternate history where the gallery became the archive of this man's life rather than an art gallery. And that happened because we kind of came up with this idea of this fictitious free music festival, the Battersea Park Free Festival, which took place in this version of history in '74, and this was such a big event that the park always kind of became associated with Hieronymus Pop, and they built a statue to him in the park, which you can see here, and so it was kind of naturally the place to hold the archive of his life. As part of that idea of the Free Festival, it was Paul's suggestion that maybe we get other artists involved. We actually do a kind of piece about the festival. So out in the boathouse, which is, we're calling it the boathouse, I don't know what it actually is.
Boathouse shelter or something.
It's a shelter just by the boating lake there. I asked Douglas Noble, who I've collaborated with in the past, to kind of get a whole group of artists together and do a kind of a short kind of hypercomic piece about that festival. So if you go out to the boathouse, you can kind of go in a continuous loop around the festival. Bringing it back to this piece, so this is about the archivist, who doesn't really have a name in the piece. He's just called the archivist. When he's part of it's online, and then some people call him Archie. I suspect that's just his screen name, not his actual name.
Yes.
And I want to do something kind of about the three aspects of this guy's life. So this first section, you can read them in any order, but this section is his kind of working life. So this is where you get a sense of how he spends his day to day, and you kind of get some hints about kind of the archive, who the archive is around. And in each section I was kind of trying to do two things. You've got the story, which is a branching narrative, so at various different points you choose which direction you want to follow it. And then you've got, next to it, you've got these file cabinet fronts, which give kind of details about the contents of the archive. So in the work section, they're all just a place and a date. And the idea of the archive is that it was founded by money left by Hieronymus Pop, and he kind of made the whole thing up on a kind of drunken bender weekend. So the archive has very specific rules about how it's run. Everything is organised by place and then date, alphabetically, and everything is also organised by 100 or so themes that he wrote down that weekend. So that's on that wall. And so this was the kind of working life, although there's little connections between each of them. In terms of how it branches, I wanted to kind of explore during the piece all the different ways in which you can do a hypercomic. So in some sections, you kind of choose what happens next. Does someone arrive at the archive, or does the archivist kind of just keep working and you follow what happens there? In other sections, you kind of choose the point of view you're following it from. So from here, you can follow the archivist off in this direction, or you can follow the poor kind of bicycle courier who comes to collect something from the archive off in this direction. And then the third way you can kind of choose, is just choose which section you read first. So you've got this kind of broken up narrative. And so it's really, although it's got choose your own adventure elements in it, where you kind of choose to go this way, choose to go that way, I kind of expect to get the full appreciation of it. Eventually we'll read the whole thing. So it's not necessarily that this happened or that happened, but you're kind of choosing maybe this version of events happened, maybe that version of events happened, but to get the full appreciation of the story, you eventually read all of it. After the work section, which is between during the day, there's the playing section. This kind of connects the least to, in a way, connects the least to Hieronymus Pop. It's still got the filing cabinets, and these are the kind of thematic ones. So you've got all the kind of the themes that run through Hieronymus Pop's life, which were kind of made off the top of my head, but I'm paying for that now because I'm trying to write about them. And this is the story of essentially his gaming life. When he's not looking after the archive during the day, he's a video game player. And it's really a kind of massive multiplayer World of Warcraft kind of pastiche running through. It's more choose your own adventure. It's more maybe this happens, maybe that happens. And it's partly the story of him trying to. My experience of playing games like this, most of what games like this are just an excuse to chat about anything other than the game. So it's kind of a protracted conversation about this dream he had last night, getting in the way of that, and the other players getting in the way of him trying to have this conversation. And next, it's kind of a romance. It's him and the girl he plays with, like dancing around each other and never quite managing to say anything to each other. Although if you follow, there is one part that has that. There's one part that has that, and the rest are kind of like something goes wrong. And then the third section, is the dream section. So this is his kind of dreaming, sleeping life. And again, this kind of jumbles up and mixes up the other two sections. So although it was designed so you could start anywhere, for me this section works better after having gone through the other two, because it kind of, there are little echoes of the other sections. It was the one that was the most fun to write, because I could just go kind of a bit nuts on it and really mix things up. For the filing cabinets in this, I kind of just let they become almost a comic on their own, because it wasn't specifically tied to the archive. It's Hieronymus Pop himself having kind of quick little quotes, kind of Chris Ware-like little sub-stories running through it. And this was the one that is the most different from the screen. I really am used to working to the screen rather than print. And in terms of colour, these two came out pretty much as I expected them to. This is much more red on the screen. There's really this kind of interesting pinky purple colour. But I liked it.
It's the team colour. It's pink. It is the team colour. What about the glass wall
there is
over
actually
here?
a fourth section.
The fourth wall.
When we started in the space, the gallery looked quite different, and then as a part of another show, the whole gallery was remodeled as an artwork itself, and they got rid of all the skirting boards, and this became a window, and originally it was a wall. So originally I had 4 planned. But when the window was here, it kind of seemed to make sense to actually use this as part of the piece. So this is the fourth wall of the piece, and this is all taking place online. So there's a fourth section called Pop, which is actually elements drawn from the archive about Hieronymus Pop, and I'm working on that at the moment. So I think there are 3 pages up so far, and there will be a full 25 going up across the course of the show. So you can kind of, again, start to piece together details about who